I crossed the stage, one step at a time, my hands clutching the rolled-up diploma like it was a lifeline. I imagined her face in the crowd. My mother, the woman who had carried me, who had told me I could do anything. No. I needed her to be proud. Instead, she laughed. Useless. The word cut through the applause like a knife. Pointless, she added, tilting her head as if she were examining some broken toy. A waste of time, she finished, her voice smooth, cruel, deliberate. I froze, my chest tightened, my graduation cap felt heavier than it ever should. Laughter and music swirled around me, but all I could hear were her words. My father's face flickered in my mind, his jaw tight, eyes darting between us. He opened his mouth, probably to defend me, but no sound came, even he looked helpless. I wanted to scream. I wanted to run. I wanted her to feel the punch of her words the way they felt inside me, but I stood there, silent, frozen. Later in my dorm room, I dropped onto the bed, still in my robe and cap, my diploma on the floor beside me. I stared at it. My hands shook. It felt heavier than ever, heavier than any weight I'd carried before. I couldn't understand it. Why her? Why now? I whispered into the emptiness. Why would you say that, after everything? No answer, just silence. The kind that presses against your ears and fills your chest until you think it might crush you. I remembered every sleepless night, every essay typed until 3 a.m., every exam I barely slept through, every ounce of sweat and fear and hope I had poured into this degree. And her words, sharp, final, undid it all. I thought back to the ceremony. The applause had been deafening, people smiling, cameras flashing, friends hugging, and there she was, her smirk so precise it felt like it had been carved. "Is that all?" she said. I expected more. I didn't cry there, not in front of everyone. Pride and humiliation warred in my chest. I swallowed hard and nodded, smiled through the ache, but inside, it was a storm. A tornado of disbelief and betrayal, and something darker I couldn't name yet. That night, I lay on the floor of my room, staring at the ceiling, trying to make sense of it. The diploma on the bed seemed to mock me. I felt both empty and furious. How could someone who claimed to love me be so cruel? I thought about calling my friends, telling them, but what would it change? Nothing. No one could undo the way her words had lodged themselves in my heart. Tears came slowly at first, then in waves, hot and relentless. I pressed my face into my hands, trying to make them stop, but they didn't. They never did. I whispered apologies. I didn't need to say. Regrets I didn't feel. The diploma glinted under the lamplight, and I imagined throwing it across the room, burning it, tearing it to pieces. But I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I felt it. The first flicker of fire, something I hadn't recognized in myself before. Not sadness, not despair, but anger. A quiet, simmering heat that made my fists clench. I couldn't articulate it yet. All I knew was that I would not be broken, not by her, not by anyone. I remembered the way she leaned back in her chair, sipping her tea, eyes half-lidded, as if she just delivered the verdict on my life, and it amused her. I could almost hear her voice again. "What are you going to do with that? You'll never use it." I pictured it, over and over, until I could taste the bitterness, and then I promised myself something I didn't fully understand at the time. I would prove her wrong, not for her, not even for my father, but for me. Sleep eventually found me, but it was shallow, haunted by her laughter echoing through my dreams. I woke up with the diploma still on the floor, my chest tight, the fire still smoldering. It was heartbreak. Yes, but beneath it, raw and burning, was something else. A spark, a tiny ember of power. And I knew, though I couldn't yet see how, that one day, she would understand what I was worth. One day, I would make her regret every mocking word. One day, her laughter would be swallowed by silence. But for now, I just stared at that diploma, and I cried. Days passed, or maybe weeks. Time blurred, my diploma sat untouched on the desk, a silent reminder of her words, useless, pointless, a waste of time. They echoed in my head every morning. I tried to focus. I had final projects, deadlines, presentations, but every achievement felt hollow. I typed, erased, typed again. Each sentence on the screen seemed fragile, meaningless. I would pause and hear her voice laughing in the background, dissecting my every effort. "Why are you bothering with that? You'll never use it." I froze. Shook my head. No, I wasn't going to let her ruin this for me, but the emptiness lingered. I thought about my childhood. Every moment she had undermined me. Subtle digs, that sep's cute for a little girl. Overt criticisms. Stop dreaming. You settle fail. Birthday wishes that always came with comparisons. Your cousin got an A+. When will you do something worthwhile? I whispered to the walls of my room. Did I ever matter? No answer. Only silence. The kind that makes your chest ache. I noticed my friends watching me, concerned, hesitant. You okay? Sarah asked, one afternoon as I stared at my laptop screen without typing a word. I'm fine, I mumbled, but the lie tasted bitter on my tongue. You sunny or quiet, another friend said. You've been distant. I shrugged. Just tired, I said. But the truth was worse. I felt invisible. Every late-night effort, every sleepless hour, every drop of sweat, it was as if it had never mattered. I replayed her mocking smile over and over. The way she leaned back, arms crossed, smirking at my diploma like it was a joke. Like I was a joke. I thought, maybe I was invisible. Maybe my accomplishments didn't count. Maybe nothing I did would ever earn her approval. And then, something shifted. A quiet seed, barely noticeable at first, began to grow inside me. I'll show you, I whispered, gripping my pens, tapping my fingers against the table. Not just quietly, not just for me, for everyone to see. The thought of private validation wasn't enough. I needed more. Public, undeniable, concrete. I imagined it vividly, her smirk replaced by shock. The disbelief in her eyes, the weight of all those years of belittling me crumbling under proof I couldn't ignore. I would make her regret thinking she could define my worth. I didn't speak about it yet, not to friends, not to anyone. The seed had to grow quietly, unseen, but every time I felt her words creeping in, I countered with a silent promise, not anymore, not ever. I spent hours alone, notebook open, writing strategies, planning the future, dreaming big, and for the first time it didn't feel like revenge in a bitter way. It felt like reclaiming myself. I thought of all the small victories I could achieve, awards, recognition, opportunities where she couldn't hide her disbelief. And slowly, steadily, that ache in my chest morphed into determination. Some nights I stared at the ceiling, tears threatening again, remembering the little digs, the dismissals, the laughs that had stung more than any stranger's insult ever could. You said or not enough, her voice still haunted me, but now I whispered back. Watch me. By the time my finals came, I was quieter than ever, but not broken. I had retreated inward, yes, but inside a fire was growing, brighter and sharper than anything she could throw at me. The seed had taken root. I could feel it pulsing every time I worked, every time I typed, every time I corrected, rehearsed, perfected, not just success. I wanted undeniable proof, a spectacle, a reckoning. And somewhere deep down, I knew one day she would see it. She would see me, not as the child she mocked, not as the student she belittled, but as someone unstoppable. For now I kept it silent, kept it close, kept it burning. But soon she wouldn't be able to ignore me. And that thought alone made the hollow ache in my chest finally feel like fuel. I called her that night, my best friend, my anchor. Hey, you there? I whispered into the phone, my voice trembling more than I wanted. Always, she said, instantly hearing the weight behind my words. I don't know what to do, I admitted, clutching my pillow like it could hold me together. Mom, she laughed. She said my degree was useless. All my work, she made it meaningless. There was silence on the other end, but not the kind that ignored me. The kind that understood. You sir, not useless, she said finally. Do you hear me? Every late night, every exam, every paper, you earned it. You earned it. And she doesn't get it. Yet. I closed my eyes and imagined her sitting beside me, her presence steady, unwavering, my chest tightened, but for the first time, not just with anger, with hope. But how do I make her see? Make her understand? I asked, the words bitter on my tongue. She laughed softly, not cruelly, comfortingly, not with words, she said. With proof, with undeniable evidence, make her sit there in the audience and watch. Make her feel the weight of what she tried to belittle. I swallowed hard. The idea was thrilling and terrifying. My pulse raced as images flashed in my mind. My mother seated in the auditorium, the same smirk she wore during my graduation. But this time, she couldn't look away. She couldn't dismiss it. She had to witness it. Exactly, she said, reading my thoughts. You don't set to do it for revenge. You do it for justice. For yourself. For every time she made you feel small, you still shine and she still have no choice but to see it. I hung up and paced my room. The fire that had been smoldering inside me since graduation ignited into a blaze. I ran my fingers over the diploma on the desk. My achievements weren't just paper, they were my armor, my weapon, my truth. I whispered to myself. I will make her see. I will make her understand. I started planning obsessively. Every detail mattered, my speech every word carefully chosen, every pause measured, subtle gestures, an arch of my brow, a slight lift of my chin, a glance that would speak volumes without saying a word, every movement a statement. I imagined walking onto the stage, the spotlight hitting me just right, my heart racing. I imagined her eyes widening as she realized I wasn't just a child she could dismiss. I imagined her swallowing the smugness, forced to acknowledge what she had spent years undermining. I practiced in front of the mirror. I rehearsed my tone, my stance, the way I would project confidence. Not for her, I whispered to my reflection. For me, always for me. Late nights became my lab. I wrote, rewrote, memorized. I plotted the timing, the rhythm, the way the audience would lean in, hanging on every word I said. My anger transformed into strategy. My humiliation became fuel. Every insult, every dismissive laugh she ever gave me, sharpened my focus. I confided a little in my friend again. As I'm scared, I admitted one night. Scared it one step be enough, that she still not see. Good, she said firmly. You should be scared. Fear keeps you sharp, but it will be enough. You shall make her understand, in a way words never could, and she shall never forget it. The thought settled in my chest. It was empowering. The control I had over this moment, over my truth, it was intoxicating. I wasn't waiting for recognition anymore. I was claiming it. I imagined the applause rising, echoing around the auditorium, and her forced smile twisting into disbelief. I could feel the rush even now, sitting in my room, pen in hand, every heartbeat, a drum of purpose, every breath, a reminder that I had survived her scorn, and I was about to turn it into triumph. I caught myself smiling at the audacity of it. The plan was audacious, precise, beautiful in its inevitability. My friend's words lingered. Not revenge. Justice. I held on to that. My mother would see me, not the child she dismissed, not the student she belittled, but me fully, undeniably, victorious. And I would relish every second, not in cruelty but in the pure satisfaction of reclaiming my dignity. The more I planned, the more the fear melted into exhilaration. Every step, every gesture, every word rehearsed, fueled my transformation. My grief, my anger, my humiliation, they all became instruments in this symphony of proof. By the time I finally collapsed into bed, exhausted, I wasn't just tired, I was awake, fully awake, alert, focused, determined. The spark of revenge had become a fire that would consume every doubt, every mocking laugh, every moment of invisibility. And when it reached its peak, my mother wouldn't be able to ignore it. She would see me, she would feel it, she would finally understand. And I smiled. In the dark, alone in my room, whispering into the quiet, "Watch me." I knew I couldn't do it alone. Not this time, not if I wanted her to see. I approached my father first, hesitant, careful. I caught him one evening, leaning against the kitchen counter, his eyes tired but soft. "Dad, can we talk?" I asked. He nodded, wiping his hands on a towel. "Of course, kiddo. What's on your mind?" I took a deep breath. "I need your help. Not with money. Not with favors. Just your support." He studied me, suspicion flickering in his eyes. "Support?" "Yes. I need someone who believes in me, someone who knows I stump not worthless." He hesitated, then quietly, almost to himself, he said, "You stir not worthless. You never were." I felt a lump in my throat. "Then would you help me?" He nodded slowly. "I still be careful. I don't still want you to get hurt. But, I still be there." It was small, but it was enough. His cautious pride shone through. He became my silent ally, my anchor of reassurance. Next, I turned to my professor, Dr. Mefra, a sharp mind with a reputation for excellence, but beneath the intellect, I sensed empathy. Professor, I need advice, I admitted, sitting across from her office desk. On my speech, on presentation, on how to make every word land. She raised an eyebrow. Yusuf always written well, but this, it feels personal. It is, I said, voice low. Too personal, but I need it to be perfect, to resonate, to leave no room for doubt. She nodded slowly, leaning back. All right, we still focus on structure first. Clarity, tone, emphasis, and subtle cues, gestures, pauses, the way you command attention. You want them to listen, but more than that, you want them to feel it. Her words made my pulse quicken. Yes, exactly that. I want undeniable proof. Dr. Mara gave a faint smile. Then we still make it happen. Carefully, strategically. Meanwhile, my mother continued her casual criticisms, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing in my chest. You start spending too much time on that project, she said one morning, flicking through my notes. You should focus on real work, something people care about. I swallowed my reaction, studying her instead, observing, analyzing. How little she knew, how completely blind she was to the fire inside me. Of course, Mom, I murmured, voice calm, but my mind was racing, calculating, planning. Every word she said became a reference point. Every smirk, every dismissive gesture, a reminder of why this had to work. I confided a little in my friend, updating her on progress. Dad sips on board cautiously, Professor Seps helping with the speech. But, Mom, she Seps oblivious. Arrogant as ever, it almost makes it worse. Good, my friend said, sharply. Use that. Her arrogance will make her fall harder. Just remember who you trust and who you manipulate. Timing is everything. I nodded, already cataloging allies and obstacles in my mind. Who could amplify my message? Who could dampen interference? My father steady but careful. Professor Mera, expert, precise, supportive. My friend, my strategist, my confidant. My mother, my target. I spent hours mapping it all out, speech points, gestures, the sequence of events that would maximize impact. Even the small things mattered, the exact chair she would sit in, the lighting on stage, the order of introductions. Every detail counted. I caught myself smiling in quiet moments, running through scenarios alone in my room. The thrill mingled with fear. One misstep and it could all fall apart. But that tension, it sharpened me, made me meticulous, made me unstoppable. I realized something about her arrogance. She underestimated me, yes, but that had become my weapon. She didn't know the depth of my focus, my resolve, the lengths I was willing to go to reclaim what she tried to dismiss. By the end of the week, my preparation had turned into an obsession. Every interaction, every rehearsal, every whispered consultation with my allies built the framework for the moment of revelation. It wasn't revenge, it was justice. Public, undeniable, precise. And in the quiet hours of the night, staring at my notes, I finally allowed myself to imagine the scene fully. Her face in the audience, disbelief breaking into forced acknowledgement, the applause swelling, echoing her own misjudgment back at her. Every gesture, every word, calculated to perfection. I whispered to the dark, alone, voice trembling but fierce. They still see me, all of them. And you still finally understand. The storm was coming, and I was ready. I paced my room, back and forth, over and over, memorizing every line, every pause, every subtle inflection. Again, my friend laughed from the doorway. You said that speech 10 times today. You are obsessed. I not obsessed, I snapped. Though my voice trembled, I making sure it hits. Every word, every gesture, nothing sloppy, nothing accidental. She rolled her eyes but stayed, amused and supportive. Okay, drama queen, do it again. I took a deep breath, turned to my mirror and began. Ladies and gentlemen, I whispered, voice shaking at first, then steadying. Today is more than just a graduation. It's steps proof. Proof of years of effort, of perseverance, of standing up when no one else believed I could. I paused. Perfect. The inflection, the weight, it was almost satisfying. My eyes traced my reflection, imagining the audience, imagining her face, her smirk, the way she'd sit, smug, unaware that the tide was about to turn. I stopped and laughed, quietly, to myself. "I Stev got this," I whispered. "I Stev got every detail." Flashbacks hit me then, her laughter, the dismissive tilt of her head at my graduation, her words slicing deeper than any stranger ever could. Useless, pointless, a waste of time. I clenched my fists, my precision sharpened. Every word I rehearsed now carried her echo, as if I were speaking directly to her, hammering every syllable into memory. "Is this cruel?" I muttered aloud, pacing again. "Am I becoming like her?" The question lingered, bitter. But I shook my head. No, not cruel. Justice, clarity, proof. That seps all. I practiced in front of my friend again, emphasizing gestures, pacing, pauses. "See," I said, pointing to an imagined audience. "This slight lift of the chin, the pause right here, it steps everything. Subtle, but it lands." "You stir terrifying," she said, laughing nervously. "In a good way." I smirked. "I have to be terrifying. Not mean, not petty, terrifying in my competence, in my truth." I moved around the room, marking the floor like a stage. Every step calculated, every breath measured. My nerves were high, my chest tight, but it wasn't panic, it was control. Pure, intoxicating control. I paused and stared at my diploma, propped up on the desk. It gleamed under the lamp, a symbol of every hour I'd poured into my education, and every word she had used to dismiss it now became fuel. "You shall see," I whispered. "All of you, every doubt, every smirk gone." Hours passed. My pacing never ceased. My voice, once shaky, grew steady, resonant. Every inflection hammered home. My pauses, deliberate, sharp, carried the weight of unspoken defiance. I tested variations. Softer here, stronger there, a glance to the left, a nod in the middle, small gestures, each with purpose. My friend watched, occasionally murmuring, "Yes, that sip's perfect, that sips it." Even my doubts tried to creep in. "Are you overdoing it?" my inner voice asked. "Are you cruel?" I stopped, breathed, and answered aloud. "No, this is justice, precision, truth, not revenge, control, focus, acknowledgement." The thrill of it hit me suddenly. The power of owning the moment before it even happened. My chest swelled with something I hadn't felt in years. Certainty. By nightfall, I had rehearsed the speech more times than I could count. Every word, every gesture, every pause burned into my memory. My nerves tingled, not fear but excitement, a sharp, heady anticipation. I finally collapsed onto my bed, heart racing, stomach tight. My friend leaned against the doorframe, smiling. "You star ready? You star on that stage. You star on make them listen." I nodded, half smiling, half breathless. "Yes, I till make them listen." And she subtle finally understand. Every single word, every glance, every pause, she one step be able to ignore it. The room fell silent, but I could still feel it. The electricity of control, the precision of preparation, the intoxicating thrill of having a plan so carefully executed that nothing could go wrong. I closed my eyes and imagined the auditorium, the audience leaning in, every face attentive, my mother sitting there, powerless to look away. Every line I delivered, a strike, every pause, a hammer, every gesture, a nail sealing the truth. I whispered into the darkness, my voice steady, strong, triumphant. "Watch me." And for the first time, I didn't doubt it. I was ready. The day had come. Graduation. The air was thick with excitement, chatter, the rustle of gowns, the click of cameras, but none of it registered. My pulse thumped like a drum in my ears. I walked into the auditorium, scanning the crowd, rows upon rows of faces, blurred by nerves and adrenaline, and then I saw her. Mom, front row, smiling, chatting with relatives, completely oblivious, the same smugness she had worn the day she called my degree useless. I clenched my fists behind my back, keeping them hidden. I forced my breathing slow, deliberate. "Abdul Wahab," the announcer's voice cut through the hum. My heart jumped. Step by step, I approached the podium, each step heavier than the last, yet electric. Time slowed. I gripped the edges of the podium. The microphone hissed. The applause died down. All I could hear was the pounding in my chest. I began. Good evening, faculty, friends, family. My voice sounded steady, though my hands trembled slightly. Today is a celebration, not just of degrees, but of the challenges we Stev faced, the nights we Stev endured, the doubts we Stev conquered. I caught her eye. She blinked, distracted, thinking I was speaking generally. I want to thank those who supported me, I continued, carefully shifting my tone. My friends who stayed up with me through endless assignments, my professors who guided me, and yes, even those who doubted me. The words hung in the air, subtle, calculated. My mother's smile faltered slightly, a twitch in her expression, the first flicker of realization. Some people said my efforts were pointless, I said, letting the word roll, savoring it, that my hard work was wasted, that I sebbed never amount to anything, that what I pursued had no value. Gasps rippled through the audience. Heads turned, she shifted in her seat, suddenly aware, her smirk was gone. Confusion clouded her face. I leaned slightly forward, letting the pause stretch. The silence pressed against us, sharp and heavy. I felt alive, every nerve, every heartbeat, electric with anticipation. I stem standing here tonight, I said, letting my voice rise, controlled, resonant, because I didn't stem let those words define me. I didn't stem let anyone else determine my worth, and neither should you. Her lips parted slightly, recognition dawning. She understood. The hint of confrontation in my words was unmistakable now. I smiled faintly, inwardly savoring the tension. Every syllable carefully chosen, every pause precisely timed, every gesture calculated to land. I hope you'll forgive me for needing to prove it, I said, voice softening, almost intimate, as if confiding directly in the audience, and indirectly directly at her. But sometimes, the ones we love the most don't see the value of our struggles. They overlook the nights we cry alone, the hours we sacrifice, the dedication that goes unseen. She opened her mouth perhaps to interject, but I held her with a glance, unflinching. She froze. I straightened, letting my hands rest lightly on the podium. Tonight isn't stet about resentment. It's stets about acknowledgement, recognition, proof that perseverance triumphs over doubt, that hard work, no matter who questions it, is never wasted. I scanned the audience, letting my gaze linger, friends nodding, eyes bright, professors impressed, leaning in, and there my mother, her expression a mixture of shock, disbelief, and finally comprehension. I could feel the tension tightening around her, like a coil ready to snap, and I felt alive, exhilarated, dangerous, almost, not cruel, just precise. Every word a hammer, every pause a nail, every gesture a statement she could no longer ignore. My journey wasn't easy, I said, voice steady, commanding, and it certainly wasn't without challenges. But I stand here, not as someone who has been diminished by mockery, but as someone empowered by it, someone who transforms doubt into fuel, scorn into strategy, criticism into motivation. The audience stirred, leaning forward, eyes wide. Some whispered, others gasped. I could feel their attention tighten, focused entirely on me, on the story unfolding. I allowed the final words to hang, measured and deliberate. So tonight I celebrate more than a degree. I celebrate resilience, determination, and truth. And to those who ever doubted me, you have witnessed firsthand what persistence can achieve. A pause? Long unbroken. I let it settle, let it press, let her feel it. The applause erupted, thunderous, undeniable. I closed my eyes briefly, savoring it. My mother's face, pale now, eyes wide, lips pressed together, the smug arrogance replaced by forced recognition. Finally, she had seen, she had felt. I stepped back from the podium, heart still racing, chest tight with exhilaration. The audience cheered, clapped, some standing. But my gaze stayed locked on her. She couldn't look away. I felt a rush I had never known. Power, yes, but not cruel. Justice, truth. The satisfaction of reclaiming every ounce of myself she had ever tried to dismiss. And in that moment, I was unstoppable. I took a deep breath, feeling the weight of every moment that had led me here. My palms were steady, but my chest raced. Every heartbeat echoed like a drum in the quiet auditorium. I could feel the eyes on me, not just the audience, but hers. Mom, front row, still seated, still proud, or at least pretending to be. I leaned into the microphone, There's a lesson I learned over the years. I began, voice clear, steady, a lesson that didn't come from textbooks, lectures, or late nights studying formulas and theories. It came from life itself, from the people closest to us. I paused, letting the words linger. She looked up at me then, a flicker of curiosity, that smirk slightly twitching. Perfect. Some of those closest, I continued, will laugh at your achievements, dismiss your efforts, call your hard work pointless, a waste of time, something that will never amount to anything. The room shifted, murmurs rippled, she stiffened, her hands, folded in her lap, tightened. I could see the color rising in her cheeks, the first hint of discomfort. The useless, Sipden, I said, letting the word echo. Fordat, charv pointless. Sipden, charv de that can cut deeper than any stranger ever could, because they come from someone who should love you, who should believe in you. Her lips parted slightly, but she said nothing. The heat in the auditorium felt like fire on my skin. Every eye was riveted, not just on me, but on her. I could almost hear their thoughts. The recognition of injustice, the shock of the moment, the suspense hanging like a live wire. I let my voice soften, but not weaken. I heard those words. I felt them. Every late night, every sacrifice, every tear shed alone in my room, I felt dismissed, minimized, unseen. I could see her shifting in her seat now, a subtle tremor of uncertainty creeping in. The smugness was gone. She was seeing me, not the child she had mocked, not the student she had dismissed, but the culmination of every ounce of effort she had tried to diminish. But, I said, lifting my chin, letting my gaze sweep the audience, I also learned something else, that our worth isn't defined by the disbelief of others, that perseverance can turn doubt into fuel, mockery into motivation, and cruelty into proof. I leaned slightly forward, my voice rising with controlled intensity. And tonight I stand here, not just with a degree in my hand, but with the undeniable truth of what I achieved. Every insult, every smirk, every dismissive word has led me to this moment. Gasps. The audience shifted again, sensing the personal stakes now. Eyes turned toward her, whispers slicing through the air. Mom's hands gripped her program, knuckles white, lips pressed tight. She could no longer pretend ignorance. She was trapped in her own disbelief. I allowed the pause to linger, long enough for every word to resonate, every syllable to echo in her mind. I could feel it, the surge of power coursing through me, the intoxicating thrill of justice about to unfold. You see, I continued, each word deliberate. Sometimes the people who doubt us the most are the ones who need to witness our truth the most. They need to see what they refused to acknowledge, to understand what they tried to erase. I glanced at her, unflinching, her eyes widened, cheeks flushing, the heat of recognition spreading. She couldn't deny it, couldn't twist it, couldn't hide. And so, tonight, I celebrate, I said, letting my words build, crescendoing like a carefully orchestrated symphony, not only for myself, but for the triumph over those who belittled me, who dismissed me, who laughed at my dreams, because every ounce of disbelief, every mocking glance, every cruel word, it all stands behind me now, as proof that persistence, courage, and self-belief can conquer even the harshest of judgments. The auditorium was silent for a heartbeat, then slowly applause began, first tentative, then growing, swelling, until it filled every corner of the room. I could hear whistles, cheers, claps pounding like thunder, and through it all I held my gaze on her. Mom sat frozen, the color drained from her face. Her eyes darted to the audience, to me and back again. She opened her mouth, but no words came. She was humbled, shocked, forced to witness the weight of her cruelty reflected back at her. A shiver ran down my spine, a mix of adrenaline and triumph. I was alive in a way I had never known. Each breath, each heartbeat, each note of applause reverberated through me. I was untouchable, yet so human, vulnerable and powerful all at once. I let my final words hang in the air, letting the tension settle, savoring the moment. Let this be a reminder, I said softly. But every ear caught it, that no one, no matter how close, how influential, how seemingly powerful, can define our worth. That truth, effort, and perseverance will always shine through in the end. The applause erupted again, louder, almost deafening. People stood, clapping, some whistling, others shouting, and there she was. My mother caught in the reflection of her own misjudgment, silent, humiliated, unable to argue or escape. I stepped back from the podium, chest heaving, adrenaline still coursing, every nerve alive. The satisfaction was electric, not petty, not cruel, just precise, poetic, perfect. I scanned the room one last time, eyes meeting friends, professors, classmates, their faces lit with admiration, respect, awe, and then back to her. The weight of her disbelief, the acknowledgement she couldn't escape, it was mine to witness, mine to hold. And in that moment, I realized something essential. This wasn't just a victory over her. It was a victory over every doubt I had ever carried, every insult, every belittling word, every moment I had questioned my own worth. I had reclaimed it all, publicly, undeniably, with grace and power. I smiled quietly, inside whispering to the echo of the applause. You see me now, every bit of me, all that I am, all that I worked for, and you cannot ignore it. For the first time she was humbled. For the first time the full weight of her cruelty was mirrored back at her. And I, standing on that stage, was untouchable. Triumphant, alive. The auditorium slowly emptied, the echoes of applause fading into memory. I lingered near the stage, letting the energy wash over me, my heart still pounding, chest tight, every nerve still alive, buzzing from the performance of truth. I saw her then. Mom, standing a few rows back, awkwardly adjusting her purse, avoiding my gaze. Her shoulders slumped slightly. I caught a flicker, just a flicker of something in her eyes. Regret, recognition, something she couldn't quite hide. I didn't move toward her. Not yet. I let the moment settle, let the silence stretch between us like a taut string. Abdul, my father said behind me, voice low but warm. I turned and he pulled me into a hug that squeezed all the tension out of me. You were incredible, he whispered. Never been prouder. I closed my eyes, letting the words sink in. Relief, joy, satisfaction. They mingled with the adrenaline still coursing through me. Thanks, Dad, I murmured. It had all worked. He pulled back slightly, holding my face in his hands. You done more than prove yourself. You shown strength, resilience, and grace. Don't ever forget that. I nodded, swallowing hard, overwhelmed. I won't, I said, though my voice shook a little. Alone later, I sat in my room, diploma in hand, replaying the events in my mind, every step toward the podium, every word spoken, every pause, every glance, every calculated inflection. It all felt surreal now, a mix of memory and lingering adrenaline. I thought about Mom, her laughter, her dismissive words, the way she had tried to belittle every achievement. And I realized something important. My plan had never been about cruelty. It had been about reclaiming myself. My worth. My voice. I whispered to the empty room. It wasn't revenge. It was proof. The release was intoxicating. A wave of calm settled over me, tempered by the memory of my pain. Every sleepless night, every tear, every fear, it had all led to this, and now it felt like closure. A soft knock at the door startled me. I looked up to see Mom standing there, hesitant, awkward, almost fragile. Can we talk? She asked, voice low, no smirk, no pretense, just something vulnerable. I gestured for her to sit. She obeyed, careful, eyes on her hands. She started faltering. I shouldn't have. I was wrong, about everything. I can see it now. Sorry. I studied her, every twitch, every pause. This wasn't manipulation. This wasn't forced theatrics. This was genuine. The weight of her conscience had caught up to her. I accept that, I said quietly. Voice soft but steady. It means a lot to hear it. Her eyes lifted, meeting mine briefly. No arrogance, no deflection, just acknowledgement. We sat there, the silence stretching, comfortable yet tense, a quiet truce forming, not forgiveness entirely too fresh, but a recognition of truth, of effort, of growth. Later my father joined us, smiling gently. I think this is the start of something real, he said. A relationship built on honesty, respect, and maybe a little humility. I nodded, allowing myself a small, genuine smile. It felt strange, fragile but hopeful. The storm had passed, leaving calm in its wake. I held my diploma again, tracing the edges with my fingers. It symbolized more than an academic achievement. It was the culmination of pain transformed into power, doubt turned into determination. Mom's apology lingered in my mind, a quiet echo of change. For the first time, I saw her not just as a critic or an obstacle, but as a person capable of regret, capable of recognition, and I realized our dynamic could shift. Tentatively, slowly, cautiously, but shift nonetheless. I whispered to myself, voice barely audible, this is closure, not hatred, not bitterness, just understanding, proof, balance. And in that moment, I felt a deep, intoxicating peace. The kind that comes from reclaiming yourself entirely, the kind that comes from proving your worth, not to the world but to yourself, and in turn to those who doubted you. I looked at Mom, sitting quietly across from me. She wasn't perfect, she hadn't earned forgiveness in a day, but she had begun to see, to understand, to acknowledge, and that was enough for now. I exhaled, letting the tension fall away. Relief washed over me, warm and steady. Triumph mingled with reflection, bittersweet, yes, but real. And finally, I felt free. Weeks had passed since graduation. The cheers, the applause, the adrenaline, they were all fading echoes now, and yet the lessons lingered, heavy but steady, like a pulse beneath my skin. I sat by the window one morning, coffee in hand, sunlight slicing across the floor. Everything felt quiet, peaceful. Unlike the storm of emotions that had carried me through the past months, this was calm, but not empty, full, grounded. I thought about Mom, her apology, tentative, awkward, but genuine. She hadn't mastered humility overnight. Our relationship remained complex, layered with years of misunderstanding, judgment, and unspoken expectations. But I had proven my worth to her, yes, but more importantly, to myself. I whispered to the empty room, I know who I am now, I don't need anyone else to tell me. It was strange, almost liberating, to feel that kind of certainty. No one could belittle my efforts or dismiss my achievements again. The humiliation I once carried like a shadow had transformed into a quiet power. I didn't need an audience to validate it. My phone buzzed with messages from friends, quick notes of encouragement, congratulations and memories from the ceremony. I smiled at each one, realizing how much support I'd had all along. They had believed in me when doubt felt like a constant companion. And now, I could acknowledge their loyalty without guilt, without feeling like I owed anyone my validation. I leaned back in my chair, tracing the edge of my diploma. It was more than a piece of paper. It was proof of resilience, perseverance, and integrity, proof that I could transform pain into motivation, mockery into fuel, and betrayal into self-assurance. I remembered the sharp words, the smirks, the disbelief, how they had once cut so deep, and now, they felt like echoes of someone else's story. Mine had moved forward, untethered. I could recall the past without flinching, without rage. I whispered again, softer this time. I don't fear doubt anymore, I face it. And I rise. I thought about the fire that had driven me. The anger, the humiliation, the hunger for acknowledgement. It was still there, but refined, controlled. It wasn't destructive anymore. It was my compass, my drive, my unspoken promise to myself that I would never shrink for anyone's disbelief again. I sipped my coffee, watching sunlight glint across the pages of a notebook filled with future plans, career goals, personal milestones, creative projects, independence, purpose. Every choice marked by intention, every step forward, deliberate, confident. There was no need for vindication, no desire for public spectacle. My victory wasn't loud, it didn't need to be. It was quiet, complete, unshakable. I smiled, feeling the weight of the past lift. The chaos, the strategy, the confrontations, they had all served their purpose. The storm had passed, leaving clarity in its wake, and in that clarity, I could see the path ahead clearly, unclouded by doubt, judgment, or fear. I thought about the relationships I had rebuilt, the tentative trust with Mom, the unwavering support from friends and family. I realized that strength wasn't just about triumph over others. It was about integrity, resilience, and the ability to remain centered amidst upheaval. The wind shifted outside, soft and steady, brushing across the window pane. I closed my eyes, letting it brush against my face, and felt a rare, full sense of satisfaction. Not bragging, not revenge, just acknowledgement of what had been endured, conquered, and transformed. I whispered once more, firmly, I am enough. I always have been. And in that quiet moment, I knew it. I envisioned the future, bright, expansive, filled with challenges I was now ready to meet. Confident, self-assured, unafraid of anyone who doubted me, unshaken by whispers or mockery, the lessons had settled deep within me. The pain had been refined into wisdom. The humiliation had become empowerment. I set the coffee down and stood, feeling the floor steady beneath me, feeling the world vast and open. The past had shaped me, yes, but it no longer controlled me. I had faced betrayal, mastered my emotions, reclaimed my voice, and preserved my dignity. The quiet victory wasn't about applause or recognition. It was about balance, strength, and truth. And now, at last, I could move forward, fully unapologetically, and entirely myself.